that it's mythology, it was very freeing. So I'm very glad that people are able to get that from it. Slightly surprised, in all honesty. I thought it was, I don't know. I thought maybe people would fucking hate it. I have no idea. but thank you very much for the kind words and everybody from everybody there. Thank you. But anyways, what do you got? Titus Jones.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna try to be a third nice person. But I just genuinely have a few questions.
Okay. What you got?
Okay, so I guess my question is, why don't you think that the Bible was, or I guess the New Testament was written in the first century, or at least some of the letters?
So for starters, okay. There are certain there are anchors that we use. In our book, we discuss more about it, and by we, I mean me and my co-partner, or data science co-partner, my co-author. What we see as far as the Gospels go, because you got like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Gospels are said to be written somewhere around about 70 to 100, maybe 70 to 110. That's generally the consensus that's thrown out from Mark all the way to John. And then you have the epistles that are said to be written somewhere around about 48 to like 62 or so, somewhere in there, 48 to 63, somewhere over about a 15-year period. So the first thing that you got to look at is, okay, what is the evidence for those things actually being there? What evidence do we have that these are actually from the first century? And there isn't any. There's none. Nowhere in the Paul's epistles does it really mention anything that's from the first century. Not really. We don't have any evidence of anything in Pauline epistles that is actually anchoring any of these things to the first century for their writing or their composition. As far as the Gospels go, there's still nothing really. The only reason that they're placed somewhere starting about 70 is because of the destruction of the temple that happens in 70. And in Mark 13, it talks about how Jesus prophesied the destruction of the temple. So most scholars, they take a look at that and they go, hey, because it talks about something that we know happened in 70, it needs to be around that time. That way it's fresh on their minds, and that's why they care about it. But the problem here is that none of these texts, Paul's epistles, Gospels, or otherwise, are ever mentioned by anybody until the middle of the second century. And the first time that they got published that we know of would be in Marcion's New Testament canon, which is published in 144. It includes a gospel, and it includes 10 books written in the style of letters attributed to Paul. So there's Paul's letters, and there's the first gospel. We don't have anyone mentioning anything prior to that. And we can see, based off of certain lines and certain phrases and the theology found within these gospels, that they are after Marcion's gospel, that they're kind of based off of it or influenced by it. Like, for instance, Matthew is a refutation to Marcion's gospel. Marcion believed that Jesus is not the son of Yahweh. He's the son of a previously unknown God, known as God the Father. And he was going to save us from Yahweh, like so that we wouldn't be under his covenant anymore. We were under a new covenant or a New Testament. So in Matthew, they have the character of Jesus say, I did not come to abolish the law. I came to fulfill the law. They make him more historical. They make him the Christ. They make him the son of Yahweh himself. So it's trying to take the story in a direction that is very anti-Marcion and explicitly trying to kind of show that difference. So we see that these are things that would come after Marcion as opposed to before it.
Okay. And like, I'm just now getting into history in my, it's crazy because I never cared about history in high school and college, but now I care. So do you have like any historians that you could recommend that I could, I guess, do some follow-up for your research for primary sources?
So if you're looking at like Gospels and stuff like that, I would, or just like New Testament in general, I would take a look at Jason Badun. I can pull up a book here from him. This is what I recommend from him. It's called.
Badune, how do you spell that?
Well, I'm going to pull it up real
Okay.
quick here. This is the First New Testament. It's from scholar Jason Badune, and you can take a screenshot if you need. Let me see there. There you go. If you want to get a screenshot of that, that's probably.
I can't see his name, but okay, the First New Testament. Okay.
Yeah, his name's right here. Yeah, there it is. Let me see if I can pull that up. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jason.
Do you have anyone else, or is it just that
So
one?
for this one, this would be like over Marcion and what Marcion puts out, and like more. It'll familiarize you with like what Marcion had in his New Testament canon there. Other than that, I would also recommend this book from Nina Livesey. But this is a pricey book. It is a scholarly work. It can be pricey. Even the Kindle is pricey. No joke. The Kindle version is $93.
Nice.
Yeah, it is pricey. But the book itself is called The Letters of Paul in Their Roman Literary Context, Reassessing Apostolic Authorship. It is talking about how Paul's letters actually show up in the 2nd century.
Okay, and then I have to hop off here in just a second, but I do have a little bit of pushback for you, but I'm interested in hearing your response. I looked up to see if there was like any first century credible sources for Paul, and ChatGPT said Clement of Rome. How would you refute that?
Clement of Rome is what it's referring to is it's referring to the author Clement of Rome of a text called First Clement. First Clement is a text that talks about like the martyrdom of Paul and Peter, and it is so there is a date range for when it came out. Scholars place it between 96 to 140, generally speaking. However, the consensus at the moment is 96, but there's no good reason to actually place it there. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about here. So we can just take a quick look here, even at just the Wikipedia page, and you can see this here. So they generally try to place it, let's see, usually right here. The most common time given for the epistle's composition is at the end of reign of Domitian in 96. Let me show you the date here. Scholars have proposed a range of dates, but most limit the possibilities to the last 3 decades of the 1st century and no later than 140. The most common time given for the epistle's composition is at the end of the reign of Domitian in 96. The phrase, sudden and repeated misfortunes and hindrances which have befallen us, in the first verse, is taken as a reference to persecutions under Domitian. Thus, some scholars believe the First Clement was written around the same time as the book of Revelation. So, here's my point. This right here is literally the entire reason why they put it at 96. They think that this is in reference to persecution. Persecution, by the way, that we don't have any evidence for. We don't have any evidence that Domitian actually persecuted the Christians. But even if that was the case, this doesn't explicitly say persecution, violence, or Domitian. They just say, oh, because this says this, that must be 96. No joke. That's the entire way that they date it. That's bullshit. The first person to quote it is in Irenaeus. Irenaeus mentions the letter in his book Against Heresies 3 in 180. So in other words, it doesn't say anything about anything going on at the time of writing, but because it says something that it's bad has happened to us, apparently that's 96. And the first time that it gets mentioned is about 90 years later.
So if anything like in the future comes out that actually confirms that First Clement was actually written in 96 or sooner than 96, would you be willing to possibly change your position, or would
Absolutely,
you still?
I would. If we knew that it was from 96, I would have to change my position.
Okay. So like what criteria do historians use typically when they're researching these types of things and determining what happened in ancient history?
What do you mean? Give me an example of what you mean.
Well, I guess because you said, well, the only reason they think it happened is because of this one thing, but it sounds like most mainline scholars believe that 96 or sooner is the most probable date, even if some people give possibility for 140. So I guess my question is, why should we go against what the majority of historians are saying,
Because what the
just
majority
based
of
on like criteria?
well, because the majority of historians are literally just going off of church history and just assumptions. Like there's literally no good reason here. There's no evidence for the claim. They just say this kind of sounds like it, and the church told us that he lived to that time, so we're good with it. In fact, if we look up Clement, like Clement of Rome, Clement the First here, what they say is based off of later author like Eusebius is where we get the actual Eusebius is an admitted liar, and he's a church propagandist / church historian in the early 4th century who writes a history of the church at the behest of Constantine. And he says that Clement of Rome died in 100. Right? So I guess where I'm going with this is that there's no real evidence that Clement even lived at that time, like legitimately no evidence of that. But they're saying that he died in 100, so therefore this fits within his lifetime. The fact that people are willing to say that the first Clement could have been written as late as 140, but Clement dies in 100 based off of what we have from the church shows that like there's a lot of scholars who are aware of the fact that Clement is possibly not even the author of this text. So it's I don't know. It's already terrible. It's just that 96 is just the consensus, and what a consensus means is not that like this is fact. It just means that that's the number that the majority of the scholars just kind of point to. That's the date that the majority of scholars point to and say this is it.
Gotcha. Okay, well, thank you for answering my questions. I'm going to check those books out.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming up and asking some questions.